Okay, let's open up our last file for today, and that is example 3, Advanced Extrude. And here we just have a kind of an L-shaped block, and we'll do several steps to this. This will be in this exercise we'll actually do several steps, somewhat of a modeling exercise that deals with design intent, looking at masses, and sketching extrude cut and extrude boss base. So first thing we want to do is apply material to this body. So if we look at the left, we see that we have solid bodies, we have one, and we have material. I'm going to right click on this. We have edit material, and I'm going to choose a plastic. Here we see steel, irons, aluminum. Somewhere down towards the bottom or midway, we have plastics. Let's choose ABS. I'm going to apply it, close it. We see that it's turned a whitish light color. We're going to come to our Evaluate Command Manager, and we'll go to Mass Properties. And here we see a mass of our part. So it's 0.46 pounds if this was made out of ABS plastic. We also have some information about the volume, surface area, center of mass. The center of mass will be used for some of our assemblies, especially when we get to exams. But for now, we'll just look at the mass, 0.46 pounds. If I go back to my material, we can see it says ABS. I can right click, and along with the edit material option, we actually have several kind of quick picks. We're going to choose a plain carbon steel. You can see it's changed another color. Come back to Mass Properties under our Evaluate Command Manager, and we can see that it's increased by a factor of 7 thereabout. Remember, the first mass was 0.4 and change, now it's 3.5 and change. We're about ready to add some features to this part that we have. Before we do, I just want to talk about the sketch that we see here. We see Boss Extrude 1. We see we have a sketch, and we can edit that sketch. And nothing's defined with the sketch. We see a couple horizontal and vertical relations, and we do have the sketch going through the origin, but we don't have any dimensions. The other thing that we have is that this sketch, I'll turn my planes on, or that this boss was created using the mid-plane feature. So we see mid-plane, it's 2 inches, it goes 2 inches, it goes 1 inch in one direction, 1 inch in another direction. As I mentioned, we're going to create some features, and typically we create or start a feature using a sketch. Now up to this point we've been focusing our sketches on our original existing planes, but we're going to actually start to make our sketches on some of our faces. So I'm going to turn my planes off. Now we're going to go to Sketch. Remember, it says to select a plane or planar face or an edge on which to create a sketch. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose this front face right here. Now it doesn't rotate to me automatically because it's not my first attempt, or it's not my first sketch of this file. So I'm going to need to use my mouse gesture. And now we can see that that plane is looking right towards us. I'm going to make a corner rectangle. I'm going to choose one point down here at the bottom. Notice the automatic relation to make it coincident with that line. And we'll make the rectangle just about here. I'm going to make this rectangle to be about 1 inch from this right edge. So just to review, I'm creating a sketch on, I'm going to rotate this, I'm creating a sketch on this face of my boss. I'm also creating a dimension from one edge of the boss to my sketch rectangle. So like I said, we'll make that 1 inch. And we can add some more dimensions. For now, I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to come to my features, and I'm going to go to Extrude Cut. And we can choose from our sketch plane, and we're going to go through all. And we can see it's going through all. And then I'm going to click OK. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my original boss feature didn't have any dimensions on it. And that may happen as we are designing, that we have a general idea as to the shape, but we're not ready to determine the final size. What we're able to do is under our features, and we can go to a button. We want to make sure that this area is selected. It's called Instant 3D. If that's selected, or if that's shaded, and we don't have any dimensions at the locations that we're going to try to move, we can actually click on a face and then on the arrow, and we can drag. Now notice how my sketch that I created maintains its 1-inch distance. And that goes back to our design intent that we talked about in our last lesson. So we are maintaining a 1-inch distance from our edge. I can go back under Cut Extrude 1, Edit Sketch, and I can even add a dimension here. It says 3. Let's make it 1, and we'll accept it. And once again, I'll click on this face and I'll drag it. And now notice that it doesn't change, oops, too far. It doesn't change its width, but it changes its location of that cut that goes all the way through. Now before I do my next change, I want to find out what my overall width is. I believe it's 2. If I just select on this boss, we can see that, okay, my depth is 2 inches. All right, so I'm going to change my Cut Extrude and go to Edit Feature, where it says Direction 1 Through Wall. We're going to change that to Blind and a depth of 1.8 inches. So it's not going to go all the way to the end. And I can accept it. And now if I were to click on this back face and change it, my depth remains to be 1.8 inches. But if I go ahead and make this a little bit shorter, notice that my hole will end up going through. That may be okay, that may not be okay. So I'm going to go to Cut Extrude 1, Edit Feature, and we'll say that it's not okay. Let's say we want it to be 0.2 inches from this surface, from the back surface. So we're going to go not blind, but we're going to go offset from surface, and it's going to ask us which surface or plane. We're going to choose this plane right here. And what's my offset? I'm going to choose 0.2. Now sometimes we have to click on this reverse offset, and I'll look at this from kind of right underneath. But in this case we don't. We want to keep it on so there's some material left after our cut. So we'll click OK. Now I'll drag it out. And as I drag it, this 0.2 inch thickness will be maintained. Drag it. Here we go. And we can see no matter how far we drag it, or how long or even how short, not too short, let's see here. Not perfect, but there we go. We can see that that 0.2 is maintained. All right, let's change this to 2 inches to our original width. Let's do one more thing with this cut. Before I do that, I'm going to right click on where it says vector, and I'm going to show. We've had this sketch that I've had hidden, and we can see a little line right there. I'm going to go to Cut Extrude 1, Edit the Feature, and we have this option that says Direction of our Extrusion. So by default it's normal to our profile or normal to our sketch, but maybe we want it to go into a different direction. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this box, and so we can see it's blue, and then I'm going to click on this little sketch entity right here, this construction line that I made earlier. And when I do that, you should be able to see, and what I can do is I can accept that. We can see how the profile or the cut follows the profile of the sketch. In fact, I can click on this endpoint and change the direction of the cut. Furthermore, I can edit the sketch and use good design intent. And I'm going to create a dimension between my horizontal and my angle. And so now, by giving this an angle, it starts at this vertex and we have an angle and a construction line. That's enough to fully define my sketch, my vector sketch. I'm going to click OK and then accept my sketch. And now we can see that my cut is 120 degrees or 60 degrees, depending which way you're looking at it, from this face. Okay, I'm ready to do some extrusions now. So I'm going to collapse those. I want to make this somewhat of a half moon portion right in the front here. And so I'm going to go to Sketch, and I'm going to select a plane to sketch on. I'm going to select this bottom plateau. It doesn't look like anything's happened, but I am in my sketch mode. I'm going to go to Normal To. And now, again, I want to make this arc, this half moon. So I'm going to go under my Arc tool, and I'm going to use this third option, this 3-point arc. We've got 1, 2. 1 is 1 point along here, 2 is another point, and then 3 is the direction of my arc, so to speak. I'm going to put it right around here, and I'm going to give it a dimension of 1.05. Before I extrude this, I'm going to actually need to make this a closed contour. So I'm going to create a line from one endpoint to another endpoint, and accept that. You can see that we have this shaded edge. So this extrusion, I want to start from this surface all the way to the top surface. So I'm going to go under Features, Extrude Boss Base. Since my sketch was already selected, even though I was out of the sketch mode, it was already selected, it begins to create an extrude with that sketch. I'm going to go where it says my From. I'm going to go from a surface, or a face, or a plane. I'm going to choose this plane right there. Notice how this is green, and then my little tag here is green as well. It's very helpful. I can do all sorts of things. I can make this a blind depth. I can also do what we did earlier, where we can do an offset from surface, where we can offset it from the top surface that we see there and do something like 0.2, like we did on our cut. This time we're extruding it. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up to surface. And it already had my face 2 there. I can choose a different face, but let's choose this face right up here. We want to make sure that we have merge results. We want to make sure we have that included. If we don't have that included, and I'll just show you what happens, I'm going to deselect it and accept it. And you might have remembered earlier I mentioned something about solid bodies in 1. Well, now we have solid bodies in 2 because we have one solid body here and then another solid body here. So I'm going to go back to Boss Extrude, edit my feature, and I'm going to merge those results, and then we have a single body. Now, I'm going to click on my top face, and I can drag this up and down, and we notice that our design intent, which says that our circular or semicircular boss goes to the top, is maintained. And as we look at this let's look at this from the front, we can see that this and this are the same height, and as I drag this up, that maintains. And that's another way that we can use our design intent. So the last thing we'll do on this part is we will make a slotted cut. We're going to make a sketch, make it on this right side face, use our normal 2. And again, the purpose of doing this today is to see that we can create sketches on various faces. We're not limited to our sketch planes. Sometimes creating sketches on the sketch planes is the best thing, but sometimes we don't have that option, or we want to use an option other than the sketch plane. So we're going to create a slot. I'm going to choose this center point straight slot, make it horizontal, something along that line. Now I want this slot always to be in the middle of my feature that we see here, or the part. If you remember, I created my part using my midplanes, so I'm going to select the midpoint of this construction line in my slot, as well as my origin. I'm using my control button. We can see that we have those two entities selected, and I'm going to make them vertical. I'm going to create a dimension of my arc radius, and this doesn't really matter. I'll say 0.2, and then I'm going to give this a overall width of 0.75, I suppose. None of these dimensions are critical, and I'm going to make this a certain dimension from the top surface. It says 0.366, let's make it 0.5, and we should see that we're fully defined down here. We'll accept that sketch, and again, if I were to create a feature, or select and create an extrude cut or extrude boss base, that sketch would be automatically chosen. But let's say we don't have that sketch chosen. Let's say we have something else chosen, or nothing chosen. I'm going to go to extrude cut. It's going to ask me to select a sketch. I can go in my modeling tree and select the sketch, or I can even come over here, and since I can see my sketch, I'm going to select it, and it starts to do a cut. Well, this time what I want to do is I want to go from my sketch plane, but I'm going to go offset from surface. We've seen that already. In fact, it shows 0.2, which is what we've done already. Let's make it 0.1. But what's my surface? Let's choose this rounded surface. We'll select it, and it looks like it's kind of doing something weird. And the reason for that is because I think we need to reverse our offset. If I reverse my direction up here, then it's going to go in the other direction. We'll go here, and then we'll click Reverse Offset. Now we should see it kind of goes inside our surface, which is what we want. And notice it goes inside and it follows that surface, and that's what I want to show. So we can see that we have a cut that follows that contour of our surface, which I think is kind of neat. because of our design intent of it being, was it 0.5 from the top, it maintains that 0.5 from the top. Furthermore, because we chose it to be midway through or in the middle, that's what it does. It maintains its symmetry. And again, the reason why it maintains its symmetry is because we used a midplane on our original boss, and on that last slot sketch, we referenced it or related it to the origin. Thank you.